if you're expecting perfection, then you're setting yourself up for failure. And chronic dieters expect perfection. And that's why they're chronic dieters, because they go from one diet to the next. And the second they make a mistake or have a misstep, they're on to the next thing. They don't give themselves any compassion or patience or self-forgiveness to move forward despite the mistakes they made.
All right, Adam, I'm ready. I'm ready to get some stuff off my chest. Are you?
I love it. Can always use a good venting session, a good complaining session.
Yeah. And for those of you tuning in, thank you. And we promise, we commit that it will be productive and helpful. It's not just going to be us complaining the whole time. And we don't do this. We don't do this often. So, we appreciate you tuning in. Adam, you want to lead us off?
Yes, there will be, just to be clear, there will be inspirational and aspirational content here. So yes. The subject of this video is things that annoy us when it comes to weight loss. I'll let you start, Haley.
Okay. So one of the things that really gets under my skin is when I read or hear that a client just doesn't want to think about it. I just don't want to think about it. I just want to be told what to do, and I don't want to have to think about it. Well, that's just not life. And that's just not going to get you what we all want, which is long-term results, long-term good health, long-term happy and healthy outcomes. Okay, so go with me here for a minute, Adam, because I know sometimes you and I fall on different sides of this argument. But truly, we're not going to get out. I'm sorry, it's not like you're sitting around not thinking all day, right? So if you want something you don't have, I get it. And you've helped me embrace this. Sometimes we have to just hand over the tools and ask our clients to just use them. Don't think and just do. But at some point, they are going to have to start integrating it and processing it mentally for it to become theirs, for them to own it. And so when I read that, it really, if I get to talk to that person, I'm like, okay, but you do know at some point you have to think about it. I'm going to ask you questions because I need you to think about it. So this becomes yours. Because if I hand you a meal plan and an exercise plan that you have nothing to do with other than you use it, it ain't yours, it's mine. And that's not going to work for you for life. Okay, my gripe is over. I will listen to your rebuttal if you have one.
That's really well said. I mean, I think you hit it on all heads there that, if it's just, here's your meal plan, here's your exercise plan, but nothing else, then it is your plan. It's not their plan. And listen, I guess I understand what people say, right? We all have a ton of responsibility, a ton of going on. We don't want to think about it. We want to outsource that. But if we think about anything in our life that we were successful at, there obviously has to be some thought and intention that goes into it. And, I understand the client's point of view, but I also understand our point of view, of course, as well. And I guess the idea is it has to feel like your own. And I think when a client says, I don't want to think about it, they just want to be told what to eat and what to do for exercise. But what they're missing, I think, is what's going on between their ears, right? The MPH, the mindset, psychology, and habits, all that stuff, which to me is 99% of it versus the roadmap is a very, very small part of it.
Right. And this gripe we got to get to in just a minute. But so here's two things. Number one, I have a story I will share, a discussion I had today. Number two, I would contend that often people are not in good health, don't have the fitness they want, carry too much weight, have poor markers, medically, whatever the case is, because they weren't thinking about it. Right? So in my mind, it's actually a fallacy. They're coming in, asking us for help, saying, I don't want to have to think about it. You're not thinking about it. That's just the problem. Okay. That's kind of where I come from with this. But again, I also understand, okay, I'm going to give you some tools, but you have to think about it because it's the not thinking about it that got you where you were to begin with. And here is my example of this. I had a client call today. Love her. She's awesome. Going through a really rough time. Like, we've all been there, right? Like, it's like, seriously, the hits just keep coming. And we're starting to see some default behavior of her not thinking about it. And she said to me this week, I think I might want to take a break. Oh, no, 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 no. Nope, no. And I said to her, okay, here's my challenge to you. Instead of tracking everything after the fact, because, right, Adam, we have people track what they're eating, what they're doing for fitness, thoughts, feelings, stress, blah, 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 blah. By the end of the day, I said, I want you to get up in the morning and I want you to fill out your log. Tell me what you're going to eat. Tell me what you're going to do for exercise and click send. And she was like, yeah, but that's not as easy because I just don't think I can think about that. Okay, well, that's the problem, right? And luckily, she has a lot of support at home. She has somebody, her partner at home, takes care of all of her food. So she doesn't have to think about it. But guess what? He's not in position and she has to. So we've missed a huge part, right? She has to think about it or we're going to end up back at the start. We're going to end up back where she was, not thinking about it. So I think that's why it gets under my skin so much, is because they assume it's because they've been thinking about, they're not thinking about it. You got to think about it. You don't get out of this not thinking about it. Okay, I'm done.
No, I mean, that's, again, really well said. It's like the no plan. Like, not having a plan doesn't help anything. And that's exactly why they're in the shoes they're in. And it's like when people say, I have too much going on, I don't want to focus on my health. Like, it's just too much. To me, like, getting rid of or not focusing or not thinking about, quote unquote, your health and fitness when you're overwhelmed, like, that's actually the best time to do that. When you're focusing on the foundational things, and I know this is a little bit of a different kind of use case here with this annoyance, with this gripe, but like, the best way to get through overwhelm and dealing with the craziness of the world is to focus on the foundational things and to think about things like your diet and exercise. Like, those are going to help you deal with and handle everything better. Mm-hmm. Not thinking about those things, not just kind of saying, all right, I'll table this until things calm down. You're just keeping yourself in the same quicksand. Foundational behaviors and habits help you deal with and handle everything better. I like to think of it, we're all juggling a million balls, and we have the ball of health and fitness and our self-care. If we don't juggle those or drop those, everything else drops. All right.
100%.
On to the next one.
Your turn. It's you.
All right. My love for acronyms, and my biggest annoyance is when people don't use acronyms. No, I'm kidding. One of my biggest annoyances is when people don't embrace FDR. FDR, fear, discomfort, doubt, and resistance. On any worthwhile change in life, there's going to be some fear, some discomfort, some doubt, some resistance. That's just natural. That's inevitable. Why? Because if we do what we've always done, it will feel comfortable. If we do something differently, by nature, it's going to feel uncomfortable. That doesn't mean uncomfortable or discomfort is a bad thing. It just means we're doing something differently. There's going to be some sort of fear, discomfort, doubt, resistance. And I think some people, as soon as they experience it, as soon as they feel it, they recoil and they don't. I think maybe they just don't expect it, but I think it's important to expect it, because if you're just getting rid of that FDR, or you're not dealing with it, or you're not thinking about it, then you're just kicking the can down the road. There is no way around it. And it doesn't mean, it has to be this whole massive uncomfortable thing. It's just a willingness to tackle it and embrace it and talk with your coach about it.
And we did a whole video last week on this very thing, right? I know exactly what you mean. It's the cut and run. It's the cut and run, right? And I talk with clients about this when I onboard them. I think I've brought this up before. I say, listen, this is like a marriage. We're in it now, for better or for worse, no cutting and running. The second there's a sign of FDR, you know it, the cut and run. It's the cut and run. And it is annoying because it's just the other side of that things really start to happen. So absolutely, here's your inspiration. Don't be a cutter and a runner.
I mean, we've been at this for a long time, right? We have thousands of testimonials, hundreds and hundreds of success stories. Every single one of those people embraced FDR, right? The difference is when they felt it, they worked through it and they didn't run away from it. That's the only difference.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a coach in your corner, use your coach. That is the key, right? We're not saying that it's supposed to be rainbows and butterflies, but we're not saying it has to be, the equivalent of a discomfort scale of 100 where it's massively uncomfortable and you're running a marathon. Just be willing to work through it and talk with your coach about it. And we can help make the FDR a lot more comfortable and a lot more tolerable.
Yes. Oh, and I have today I had this conversation with a client really struggling this week, different client, really struggling this week with this concept of FDR. And she just flat out told me, I just didn't feel like doing it. I just didn't feel like pushing myself this week. I had those thoughts of why bother? Nothing's changing. Doesn't matter. Here's what we applied, the discomfort scale. And there were a couple of things she knew, like foundationally, if she could accomplish these things, it would most likely move the needle for her, right? Out of this place of inertia. And so we put those two things on the discomfort scale. And one thing we established, we agreed, okay, when I'm feeling this way, when I'm feeling like cutting and running, I'm looking for a 1 or a 2 on the discomfort scale, not a 0. We got to be above nothing, right? But it doesn't have to be a 5 or a 6. She didn't need to go out and run a marathon, right? She just had to find a 1 or a 2 on the discomfort scale, tackling the discomfort for today just to move the needle. So I think that's a really helpful tool as well.
I love that so much. Action, alleviates a lot of things, right? And it certainly alleviates FDR, right? Because it is so much easier to act your way into a new way of thinking, or at least act your way into a different way of thinking versus thinking your way into a new way of acting, right? We all get in those times, we all get in those moments and those seasons or those weeks. I'm just like, my whole house was sick. Like I've been feeling like a slug, right? It's so hard to get going, but the commitment I have is I'm going to embrace that FDR and do a little something versus nothing.
Right. All right. Can I
yes,
put another
please.
gripe on the table? I get so frustrated when we have a wonderful, dear, we love you all clients come to us in the first month and say, well, I didn't see any behavior change, so I'm out. Are you kidding? So my question is, and I really want to know, and I will say, culture and society and the things we read and social media and blah, 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 blah does not help us humans with this whole 21 days to develop a habit. Garbage. It's garbage, first of all. It takes longer than 21 days for most of us, by the way. Good luck figuring out how long. I know, sorry guys. You could tell, but seriously, ask yourself how long it took to develop the behaviors you have. You probably could not tell me. So why in the world does anyone think that in a month they should be a completely different human being? Adam, maybe you should take it from here because clearly I feel very strongly about this one.
Well, listen, there's scale victories. Many of us want weight loss, but there's also the non-scale victories, right? Improved decision-making, improved behaviors, improved reactions, etc., right? And so often we're only focusing on what we didn't do, right? Let's say last night you had ice cream, you're just harping on that. But what about the night before where you didn't have ice cream? And we always say, here I go again in our minds, right? When it's the negative, when it's a misstep, when it's a mistake. And I quote all those, put quotes around those because there's no missteps or mistakes when it comes to this journey. It's about moving forward. Some choices will be better than others, but we always harp on the missteps and mistakes versus, you know what, last night I didn't have ice cream, or the night before I didn't have ice cream, whatever it is, right? Try to focus on the positive changes. And almost always when when I talk with the client or you talk with the client, it's like, actually, you're right. But they expect there to never be instances where they emotionally eat or stress eat or whatever it might be. And it takes time to overcome these things, but it is doable. But if you're expecting perfection, then you're setting yourself up for failure. And chronic dieters expect perfection. And that's why they're chronic dieters, because they go from one diet to the next. And the second they make a mistake or have a misstep, they're on to the next thing. They don't give themselves
Yes.
any compassion or patience or self-forgiveness to move forward despite the mistakes they made.
Right. I have a great analogy that I've used very successfully with one of my clients, um, who has been very frustrated along the way with what has appeared to her, what she's perceived as a lack of behavior change. And that analogy was this idea that, for the most part, she's walked the same pathway from A to B day after day after day, year after year after year, right? Same pathway. The brush is cleared. It's so well worn that she doesn't have to think about when to step over certain places, rocks, roots. She knows when to duck, right? Like it's so automatic. And over the course of our work together, I've had her take different paths from A to B, right? But because they're not well worn, they're still very grassy. There was a snake in one, right? Like I try to come up with these analogies and I tell her like you just have to be willing to wear that new path. And that means choosing to walk it when you feel up for it, right? And she really liked that. And it turns out like we do track her behavior change and we did just what you said. Like she tended to focus on, you know, the old thing that she did yesterday. Meanwhile, she forgot to look at all the days before that she didn't do the old thing, right? But behavior change takes a long time. And for our parents out there, anybody who has kids, how many times have you told your child, shut the door? How many times have you told your child, say please, say thank you, flush the toilet, wash your hands? Guys, that takes like, I don't know, 20 years. I'm not there yet. I'm 12 years in. And I still have to remind my kid of these simple things. Like behavior change takes a lot. And it's so worthwhile going through it with another set of eyes, with a coach in your corner so that they can show you it is happening, but it's not going to happen in 30 days. Sorry, I'm poking a hole in that one. 21 days? Nope, not going to work. 75? Nope. 75 hard? Cool, you did something hard for 75 days. And listen, I'm not saying they're not changed on the other side of it. You're absolutely changed. By the way, you change every day. So that's cool. But true behavior change that lasts, that you don't have to constantly work at, takes longer than a month.
And it's so worth it though, because it's permanent.
Yeah, it is. And by the way, it's probably worthwhile that it takes a long time because we also don't want to have permanent poor behaviors, right? Which, by the way, brings in my whole thinking point again. Anyway, I digress. We should probably move on.
Yeah. By the way, just a quick thing. When change is uncomfortable and hard, there's actually what's known as cognitive disfluency. And the harder something is to acquire as a skill, the stickier it becomes, right? The longer it lasts. So it's basically easy come, easy go. So when something is hard to acquire as a skill, that's actually a good thing because when you acquire it, and you will if you persist and stick with it, it will last.
Yep. 100%.
All right.
Bike riding is hard until it's not.
Right. All right. Is it my turn?
It is.
It annoys me when people take a victim mentality versus a hero mentality. I know this could be a lot, but there are certain people in our lives that we all know that everything is always happening to them. Why me? Why did this person treat me like this? Why did this happen? And they're just always the victim in their story. And listen, it could be from a lot of things, but we are ultimately responsible for our experience in this world. And why not choose the hero mentality? Why did this happen for me versus to me? And I know it might seem hokey. I know. But we do get to choose how we respond to things. And we might as well choose the response that will ultimately serve us better in the short and long run.
Yeah. I think one of the most difficult things about this issue, if you will, is that it is habitual. it is a habit, right? Like once we fall on one side or the other, it's a habit to see life that way. So I am also aware that if you happen to fall into the victim category, just like any habit we work with our clients, right? Like whether it's the habit of turning to potato chips when you're having a bad day, or the habit of killing the alarm and skipping your workout, or the habit of life happened to me. It served you in some way, right? Let's be clear on that. And I think you have to understand you're going to have to part with that habit, and it's going to leave a big gaping hole that's going to feel really uncomfortable. Um, but life is magical when I think we embrace that life is happening for us. It's empowering. It's it gets a lot better, just like changing any habit. I just want to put that out there because I don't want, I don't want you guys to think that we're coming off judgmental or anything like that. It's a habit and it served. You didn't choose it consciously, you know? So figure out like how does it serve me to see life as happening to me? Well, it makes me feel like I'm in control. And the hard part about being human is we have very little control. you know? So it's more empowering, in fact, to say, okay, life is happening for me and I can choose a different perspective about it. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, totally. Control the controllables. And for sure, I mean, again, we do not say this with judgment. For years, I was very bitter and resentful about, my father being sick, him passing away early. I would look at my friends like they get to play with their dads. Like I was really bitter and upset for a long time, until I finally had this just switch in my head. It's like, well, I am exactly who I am because of everything I dealt with and I experienced. And I try to, and I've learned to look at it as a blessing and a positive. And of course that's hard, but it certainly serves me better, right? And so again, we don't say this in a judgmental way. It's more of like we get to choose. We might as well choose the way that's going to serve us best. And I always like to say blame equals be lame. And when you take that victim mentality, you're always looking for reasons why things don't work out, right? And when you commit to something, it's like immediately you're looking for reasons why it won't work versus why it will work. You meet someone, you're immediately looking for reasons why you can't trust that person versus why you can trust that person. It's just, living that way can be very challenging. And, I would encourage you to try to focus on the positives and take that hero mentality and see the bright side in things.
So I just want to bring up another example, and this has to do with another call I had this week. Gosh, these calls, they're like money this week, right? But I have a client I've worked with for a very long time. Huge fan of his. But he himself acknowledges he lived much of his life feeling the victim of his life, right? Even up until the last couple of years. And he's looking at retirement, right? Like he's probably 5 years out. And I would say within the last 2 years, he shared a lot with me about regretting that he made certain choices about certain situations in his life, really wishing things were different at this point. That's hard. 5 years out from retirement and wishing it was different. And I just kept saying, I said, but you can't wish it was any different because you wouldn't be who you are today, and he got that. But I will tell you this week, he's like, I feel like I have a new lease on life. I'm like, well, tell me about it. It's purpose. He's like, I feel like I've found a new purpose. And he goes, you know what? I don't want anything in my past to have changed because then I couldn't go after this purpose. And so for anybody out there who is struggling with victim mentality, maybe there's something there. It's like, what is your purpose? Because if you have a purpose, right, a mission, a passion, you're not going to get to it being the victim. You have to be the hero, right? And I think he's finally stepping into that role in his life, which is so amazing because he's such an incredible human being and he does have a really great life and he knows that, But I just thought maybe that would be some good inspiration for anybody struggling to overcome that habit of life is happening to me. No, life is happening for you because you have this mission, this purpose, this passion in life.
Love that.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
What else we got?
Anything else? I
Um,
don't know. I think I'm at the end of my list. Do you have any other gripes?
um, we talked about, uh, I think we talked about it all. I mean, we talked about the meal plan and exercise plan. We talked about,
Oh, yeah,
we
we
touched on it.
dabbled on that one. Yeah. I mean, here's the
Are you
thing, and I
annoyanced
think we did
out?
kind
You got nothing left, or you want to? Let's just touch on this a little.
All right, just a little, guys. It's not just about the meal plan and the exercise plan. You're right. We did kind of touch on this. This is that like no thinking thing. But this is a different vein. It's the follow through plan. It's the follow through. It's the consistency. I tell clients this daily. All right, so last night you had an extra chocolate chip cookie. Do you do that consistently? If not, don't worry about it. It's what you do consistently, right? It's if you're consistently eating, 2 cheeseburgers and fries a day, yeah, the meal plan's gonna matter, right?
Right.
I don't know. It's just anytime I see somebody go, well, I didn't get the right meal plan, or I didn't get this exercise plan, or these tools didn't work. Okay, well, my first question is, how consistently did you try them? Right? It's the consistency of the follow through that matters. There is no right plan. There's no perfect plan. It's the consistency and the follow through.
Yeah.
That's my gripe.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's this idea that there's some sort of magical pill or plan or diet or whatever it might be that is out there, and the only magical thing there is a plan that you feel you can stick with. But the real magic is in consistency, right? The only secret out there is that there is no secret. The secret is in consistency. And that is why everything we do is designed to help you stay with it and stick with it. Because when you do, that is when, it feels like magic happened. That's when it looks like magic happened, because you're following through day in and day out. And I know so many people obsess over the 1%, the first inch of the plan. So many programs out there. Here's what you eat. Here's what you can't eat. But it's all about the follow through. It's a day in and day out, the accountability, the guidance. Like, that's what enables that to happen. So, yeah, I think we touched on a lot of things. I think we shared our annoyances, our gripes. I hope there was some inspiration in this. I think there was. What do you think, Kelly?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. We had a lot of good examples, and okay, like, what do we do with that, right? Like, yeah, how does this help us? I think so. I think we're good. Of course, we're always open to comments. We love comments. We love hearing from you. So let us know. Would these things annoy you? Do you do these things? We do these things. We get annoyed by ourselves.
100%.
So, you know? So yeah. All right, guys. That's it for today. We'll see you next time.